Welcome to the outrageously popular Christian Theologist channel, where reason and sound exegesis are used to highlight faulty doctrine and practice in the contemporary English-speaking church. The title of this video is, When Must These Things Come to Pass? The Imminency Inclusio in the Book of Revelation. Today, we're going to discuss the literary device known as Inclusio and how it's used by the author of the Book of Revelation to emphasize the imminent statements he placed in his prologue. A major problem with so many contemporary interpretations of the prophecies in the Book of Revelation is that little to no attention is paid to the time statements of the first 3 verses. The purpose behind this video is to provide evidence that, contrary to any claims made after its composition, the author of Revelation was clearly convinced that every future event he wrote about was going to occur in his original reader's lifetime. For us Christians today, this means events in John's future already took place in our past, nearly 2,000 years ago. Right, let's begin. To ensure that everyone is able to track with me, I'd like to define 4 somewhat obscure terms I use in this video: prologue and epilogue, inclusio, and imminence. The least obscure of these terms is prologue and epilogue. The prologue refers to the foreword or introduction of a written work, while epilogue means the afterword or the outro of a written work. The author's prologue in Revelation is highly significant, as it not only introduces the author, it also establishes the theme of the work and the purpose for its composition.
The fundamental theme of the book of Revelation is announced in the first verse. He apocalypsis tu Christu Jesu. The apocalypse, the unveiling, literally, of Jesus Christ. This is what the book of Revelation is about. It is not the apocalypse of geopolitical events thousands of years in the future. That's not the stated theme of the book. Its purpose, to give comfort to beleaguered people. Christian people facing persecution needed encouragement. This book was intended to encourage them.
Whereas the epilogue of Revelation is generally agreed upon among scholars to start in chapter 22 at verse 7b or 8, where the prologue ends is under some dispute. Some claim that only the first 3 verses constitute the prologue. Others say it runs to verse 8, and still others believe it takes up the entirety of chapter 1. Of course, there are good reasons for all of these positions, but, happily, the debate doesn't have any bearing on the topic at hand. Everyone agrees that the prologue is at least 3 verses long. The Lexham Glossary of Theology defines inclusio as a literary device that repeats words or themes at the beginning and end of a section. The repetition brackets the section. The Bible makes frequent use of inclusios to structure both long and short sections of text. This form of bracketing sections of a text is important to interpreters because it is the author's way of indicating that the words or theme making up the inclusio is applicable to all of the text bracketed by it. As an example, we can look at the inclusio bracketing the text between verses 5 and 13 in the first chapter of the book of Hebrews. This inclusio creates a parenthesis of scriptural support for the author's assertion of verse 4 that Christ has become superior to the angels. The question, to which of the angels did God ever say, in verse 5, is repeated 8 verses later in verse 13 as, to which of the angels has he ever said? After giving his proof, the author of Hebrews returns to his apologetic discourse in verse 14. In the case of Revelation, there are several different words and phrases in the prologue, repeated in the epilogue, that form an inclusio of the entire book. Particular phrases we're interested in right now are those dealing with imminency, which is the 4th term I need to define. Imminency, or imminence, is the state or condition of being imminent, that is, likely to occur at any moment. Theologically, imminence is a term usually referring to the possibility of Christ's second coming occurring at any moment. Okay, here are the first 3 verses of Revelation as translated in the ESV, the English Standard Version. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his servants the things that must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who bore witness to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he saw. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time is near. Notice the 2 imminency statements, that must soon take place, and the time is near. Now, while much has been debated about these statements over the last 2,000 years, in the 1st century, when the book was written, there was absolutely no doubt as to what they meant.
Fundamental timing of the book again and again. You noted it in the last chapter, and it's sprinkled throughout the book. The things described herein are just about to happen. This is one of the most perplexing problems to people who view the book as describing the distant future, because the Greek is absolutely unambiguous. There is no refuge in it. In many ways, it's stronger than the English form. These things are just about to happen. If, in fact, that statement is taken at face value, and those things were not just about to happen, but were going to happen thousands of years in the future, it makes the book fundamentally dishonest. The people who read it first would have, at face value, immediately taken this to mean what is described here is going to happen within the next few days, months, and years, but not 2,000 years later.
And again, the imminency expressed in the prologue is repeated in the epilogue to form an inclusio. In chapter 22, verse 6, we read, "These words are trustworthy and true, for the Lord has sent his angel to show his servants what must soon take place." Notice that the entire phrase, "to show his servants what must soon take place," is repeated verbatim. You don't even need to read Greek to see that these phrases are identical in the original language. This is obviously an intentional inclusio, inserted by the author to highlight one of the more crucial points about the events revealed throughout the entire book. That is, that they were imminent, and that they must soon take place. Thanks for watching, and before you go, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and bell notification buttons. God bless.